Angus, you are a crazy hyper dog, but not a bad dog. This is his roadmap to success. Now, Angus basically didn't have any real rules. He was under-exercised, and he was confused as to what his status was in the pack because when he told his humans what to do, they did it. He would demand bark, he would jump up on them, and all this sorts of stuff. We had a little member of the family that was playing pretty rough with him. And I think some of the bites that have happened, I think, are a little confused to playing too rough. And also not having the appropriate respect for the humans as authority figures. So we did a number of things in this session to flip what I call the leader-follower dynamic. We first of all like to get him more exercise. So I told the guardians to start a journal. Write the date at the top and then count the number of times we fetch him. He loves to fetch, and that's a great way to burn energy. So take him out fetching and count. Maybe in the morning he needs 42 fetches. Maybe then around lunchtime, maybe we play fetch inside, and then maybe we go for a walk around after the kids come home from school, and then we get another fetch before dinner time. Remember not to fetch him or do any athletic activity. He's going to be doing a lot of lateral movements until at least an hour after he meals, so he doesn't have his distended stomach get twisted and pressurized. Let me see. So upping his exercise is not going to fix the problem, but it's going to make fixing the problems easier. And when he starts doing nuisance behaviors, when he starts zooming around the house, that's a good indication that he needs some exercise. I would recommend the guardians go to Amazon and get a whistler ball. It's the size of a tennis ball, and it has 2 holes in it, so when you throw it, it makes a whistling sound, but it also glows in the dark, so you have to hold it up and twist it around a light source, and it holds the light for a good 10 minutes. Get a chucker and just play fetch in the backyard. Again, count the number of fetches. At the end of the day, give that day a grade, A, B, A through F. And then the next day, play around with the fetching until in the exercise levels until we get to the point where the dog, we know exactly how much exercise we need to get the dog an A+ day. Now, when you're fetching, I would, because he seems to be, the guardian's like, here goes forever, I would take him once, again, after a meal, or a long time after a meal, maybe a couple hours, and just fetch him as much as he'll go, and figure out how much we can have to fetch him just to burn off his energy. Now, we can also, when we have guests coming over, we want to take him out and get a lot of exercise beforehand. If the kids are going to have somebody spending the night, that would be a good day for him to go to daycare. And actually enrolling him in daycare a couple nights a week would be really good for him in terms of socialization experience and burning off a lot of excess energy and burning it off around animals that can actually correct him if he gets too exuberant, which will help him with some of his mouthing and biting. One of the things you can also do is he likes to skin tennis balls and then destroy them. If you get something, I think they're called either the dog's balls or dog's balls. They're on Amazon. They'll be like yellow and orange or blue and yellow. They'll have different colors. And so they come in a 4-pack, 6-pack. This way they're not skinning them. And you can use those to play fetch. Get a chucker so it makes it easier. You already have a chucker. Make sure you use the chucker. Something else the guardians might want to do is invest in getting an iFetch. That iFetch is an automatic, is a game that allows the dog to play, or a device that lets the dog play fetch with itself inside. They have another one for outside. I believe that's called a Go Dog Go, which might be a little bit too big for him. You probably use the iFetch outside as well, but it's not something that I don't think it would be weatherproof. I would probably bring it in each night. They're about $150 if you have a problem getting him to use it. Let me know. We can set up a training session and work on teaching him to do that. But being able to have him play fetch with himself in the house, I think would be very valuable as a nice way for him to maintain it. And again, anytime that he seems to be exuberant or running around or boisterous, that should be, you should interpret that as he's saying, I have too much energy. Please take me out for a walk or a game of fetch. So the journal will help you come up with the right combination of exercise that will help him take off some of this excess energy. Yes, I know you're breathing heavy. All right, so we went over ways to add structure. So one of the things we did was talking about petting with a purpose, which just means we're not going to pet the dog when the dog jumps up on us anymore or barks at us or nudges us, because that's demand barking, that's a petulant behavior. And instead, what we're going to do is we're going to give the dog a counter order. If he jumps up on me, I'm going to pet him and say, sit. When he sits, I'm going to pet him under his chin and say the word sit. Just the word sit, not good sit, not Angus sit, not oh what a good boy, you're the smartest dog ever, just sit. Now if I'm teaching the dog how to do something, I'm only going to say the command word when the dog actually does it. Be careful of keep your hand on your right hand because you cover this microphone. You might not be able to hear it as well. There we go. And so basically if my dog doesn't know a trick, I'm only going to say the command word when he's doing the full version of the trick. If I'm teaching him an individual part of the trick, one of the steps, and I say the command word when I give him the treat, let's say I'm trying to teach him a roll over, and the first step is getting him to shrug his shoulder forward. If I give him the treat and say roll over, he thinks that means roll over. So instead, we're going to wait and just give him the treat just for shrugging, but maybe click, but not actually saying it until he's actually doing the full rollover motion. Now, remember, we're going to use the word paycheck. So we come in the room, we see someone's petting the dog, and he's standing. We're saying paycheck. That person has to stop petting, tells the dog to sit again, pets on the chin, and says, actually, I taught him to sit before you came in the room, and when he heard you coming, he stood up, and David said that's so loud, which it is. Once you ask him to do something and he changes his state, you can pet him for an hour after that, or hours. But he has to either do something to earn it, or he has to prepay for it. Prepay is when you've done this enough, he's going to come start sitting in front of you as his way of asking for attention. When he does, make sure we do acknowledge that. That's why I would also recommend the watchword of reward. So if somebody says reward, we look at the dog, and whatever the dog happens to be doing, we pet it and just say that it is. If it's standing, I assume the dog just came to me, and I would just pet it and say come. Now, because the family said come so many times, they might consider changing the word to here, or a different word, because the word come has probably got a lot of baggage because the family has been in the habit of saying the command word over and over and over again. The more we say it to a dog, the less we mean it. And so that can actually train the dog to ignore a command word. So let me see. That's for passive training. Or for petting with a purpose, excuse me. The next thing I go over is passive training. And passive training is simply rewarding the dog when it does desired things, like when it prepays for attention, we'd pet it and say, sit. But also, this dog doesn't know how to lay down on command. An easy way to teach him to do that is every time he lays down on his own, we pet him and say crash within 3 seconds of him doing it. And if we do this over and over again, eventually he will crash in anticipation of getting that treat or that reward. Now, I mentioned getting dog beds. One last thing. Petting with a purpose and passive training. If you do nothing else from the session but adopt those two things, every time you pet your dog for the rest of your dog's life, it's a mini obedience training session if you ask them to do something first, or you reward them for desired actions. Just like kids, the more that you reward them for the right thing, the more they continue to do that thing. Or at least theoretically, we hope so with kids. But I know it works that way for dogs. So we're just going to let him know what he can do to make us happy. Let me see. Now, we went over some rules. Some of the rules, no furniture, especially because the youngest child is being challenged by the dog. And when the dog runs up at him and kind of runs towards him, he's not nipping at him, but it's kind of a little bit of a feint sort of move. And we want to disagree with that, because anything a dog is doing when we pet it is what we're rewarding. But anything the dog does in our presence that we don't disagree with, they think we're giving 2 thumbs up to. So he does that. We know that. We need to disagree with him. Now, maybe we would recreate that situation, have the young one come and sit here when mom's sitting here. So the dog starts coming up, and mom can step and correct and use the escalating consequences to disagree. Now, we also went over a way for the kids, careful your fingers, for the kids to earn chocolate by doing the right thing. So if the dog, mom's taking over. So if the dog does the right thing, or the child pets with a purpose, or tells the dog to sit at the door, which is another one of the rules. And he goes and tells mom puts an M&M or a marble in a jar, then at the end of the day, that kid gets a special dessert. But make sure that you don't spoil it by using that, oh, you didn't make your bed, so I've taken your M&Ms away. Only dog related, because you got a lot of stuff going on and we need a good incentive for the dog. Kids usually do a lot of the wrong things with the dog. It's hard for us to reach them. This is the best thing that I've come up with for, and the way that it stops working is when mothers either, or fathers, start incorporating it with other things that are not related to the dog, or they start deviating it, like the guardian mentioned a marble, and then whoever gets the most marbles gets a special reward. I would make sure they both get a reward of the M&Ms or the chocolates. So maybe each marble represents an M&M, so the kids aren't tempted to go and eat them themselves. And then, at the end, and then maybe the winner gets a special piece of cake or something like that. But I've had other mothers where, come on, buddy, don't fight me so much. Other mothers who will basically keep track of it at the end of the week. Whoever gets the most maybe doesn't have to do their chores that weekend. Or whoever has the most at the end of the month gets to do a sleepover with 3 of their friends, or goes to see a movie, or some other thing that the child wants to do. It's a great way to create an incentive for the child to want to do the right things. And if the dog does the wrong things, one of the things I'd like him to have is Angus to have some sanctuaries, because one of the children likes to hug and grab him, and there might be times where Angus needs some space. And if the child doesn't listen to Angus and keeps on grabbing him, Angus eventually is going to nip him and bite him and let him know, I don't agree with that. If that's the case, that's going to cause a problem. So what we'd like to do is every time the dog is on any of the dog beds, the children are not allowed to engage with the dog. If the dog goes into his kennel, they're not allowed to engage with the dog. And if they do, they might lose a forfeiture of a single M&M, or if it happens repetitively, you know what? If you go on there, you lose all the M&Ms you earned all day long. Make it a serious consequence, because we don't want him to nip or bite the children, because that's a serious consequence as well. We need to provide him with the structure so that he feels empowered to move away and have a safe place. If he has no safe place, the young one keeps grabbing him everywhere he goes, he's going to have to turn and nip him. And then he's going to get blamed for it, but it's really the young one's fault for not respecting him. Hugging. Dogs are not big fans of hugging. Also, sticking our face next to the dog's face is not something dogs usually do unless they're apologizing or being really aggressive. So when we do it, it sends a mixed signal. Also, no people food. People food confuses the dog to get too close. That would be some of the rules that we went over. Another rule would be the dog has to sit at the door before we let it in or out. If I say sit and it doesn't sit within 3 seconds, I walk away. Sit down somewhere. Wait 1 minute, then go back and tell it to sit. If it doesn't sit this time, I'll walk away for 2 minutes. Next time for 4 minutes. Keep doubling the length of time before you ask again. And as soon as you go over there and say sit, and he sits, open that door, there's a remote control in his butt. After a while, he'll start going and sitting at the door as his way of asking. Now do it whatever direction he wants to. If he wants to go outside, only do it with his inside at first. But eventually you want to do it with both ways. Also, if you're going for a walk, you have to sit at that door. Remember, whoever goes to the door first is the leader. So if you're going out the door too, the dog needs to go out after you. If you're just letting the dog go out the door, it just has to sit before you give it permission to go out the door. Another rule would be that the dog should not be within 7 feet of anyone who's eating. So if we're eating at the dinner table, there should be a boundary of 7 feet. Maybe if we're in the dining room, he's not allowed to come out of this room into the dining room area. Or the kids, and that would be another great way to practice, having the kids come and sit in different parts of the house with their snack, one kid at a time. And then so that we can have the youngest one sit here and he can kind of dangle it and almost make it a little enticing. If the dog comes over, mom can use the escalating consequences to disagree. But this way we help the dog practice good behavior through our regular day-to-day routine. And then when we have a sleepover and we have 3 kids over here and they're being sloppy with a slice of pizza, he knows I'm not allowed to eat that stuff. Okay, we also went over, the video we did above is about how to stop him from jumping up and offering such excited energy. Make sure we recreate that situation. We also did an off-camera exercise of claiming the area around the door. Now, I'd like the family to try to practice both of those. Anytime somebody comes to the door, we should call or text ahead of time. And again, put a sign on the door. If you're a friend, please call or text us before you knock the door or ring the doorbell so you can help us train the dog to behave at the door. Your friends and neighbors will help you with that. I wouldn't put your phone number there, just making people you know. And when we're coming home, instead of coming in the door ourselves, play the part of a guest and text each other ahead of time so we can wipe our hands, we know we're ready to do it, and we practice that. The door claiming exercise, I would really emphasize that for the next week or two and really try to do that a couple of times a day. And eventually the dog will just wait at the invisible boundary that I showed the guardians how to establish. Once that's the case and then they come in the room, that's probably his energy is going to escalate. So maybe after we do the door claiming exercise and he was respecting it, then while the guest waits on the tile, somebody else goes and grabs the leash and attaches the leash and follows the instructions that I have in the video above. That way, once they come in the carpet, because that's going to cause it, now he's closer, my energy is excited again, and that might cause him to have some problems. And so we want to teach him the only way people are going to engage with you is if you're 4 on the floor and nice and calm. When we come home, if we come home and we haven't claimed the door, he's not on a leash, don't pet him. Or if he gets really excited, hey buddy, if we pull out the leash and he gets excited, put the leash back and go sit down. Practice putting him on the leash, and every time he walks in front of you as you're walking the leash, you turn around and sit down. And this is helpful to do at times where you don't plan on taking him for a walk, because now you take away your bag. You're like, I got 28 minutes, I can walk the dog, I can do this, this, and this, and I'll still make it to work. Well, then the dog doesn't cooperate on the walk and you get frustrated with the dog. So this way, if you have a couple minutes late at night, you go through the leashing process and the dog doesn't cooperate, you push the leash down, and then you'll go back to watching your TV program. The dog's like, oh man, because I moved in front, now we're not walking at all. I ruined it. Well, they're not, because you weren't going anyways, but you take away your baggage, and next time they pull the leash out, the dog is desensitized and recognizes as soon as I get excited, the leash goes away. But I want to go for a walk, so I'm going to learn to stay calm. He's a higher energy dog. I always tell people, when you're getting a dog, the most important thing is to get a dog that matches your energy level. These guardians did what most people do, is they picked a dog by a picture. You want to really see the dog and make sure it matches your lifestyle. If you get a dog, there's nothing wrong with a dog that's really high energy as long as you have a high energy lifestyle. But if your dog is high energy and you're not, then the dog has to come down or you have to go up, and neither one of you is in your balance zone. That's why I really think the exercise is going to play a big part in helping him learn to be more relaxed. Now, I'd like the guardians, they're only feeding him once a day. I think that might also contribute to a little grumpiness. I'd like them to feed him twice a day, breakfast and dinner. we want to leave his food or leave his bowl down all the time. If mom wants to clean the bowl, that's fine. But after, I would put the food in it. Once he comes and licks it, cleans it up, wait for him to walk away before you pick it up and clean it, but then put it back in the same location. I want him to walk by it over and over and over to see that it's empty, so when there's food in it, it's a special rare occurrence. And whoever's feeding him should eat something first, and then give him permission to eat. Now, I give my dogs a word to eat, and you might want to do that for him as well. So every time he takes his first bite of food, maybe we say chow, or grub, or feast, or whatever the word is. So then when he eats that, and he hears that word, there's food in his mouth. Then eventually you can make him sit and wait for his food and then say feast whenever you want. But remember, the human should eat something first, whoever's feeding him. Just 5 or more bites of a chip or cracker will be sufficient. It's better if you're eating a real meal, but don't eat at the same time because he's going to finish first and then he's going to try to come and have and be close to you. Let me see. Am I forgetting anything? I'm probably forgetting a lot of things. Don't argue with the kids. Just tell them no. And because we're going to have 2 future Hall of Fame attorneys living in this house because they're very good at negotiating. So I would make for the M&Ms, I would come up with a set of rules based on your lifestyle and write them down. And make sure they write them down and say, hey, that's number 4. If you go under the dog bed when the dog's there, you forfeit all the M&Ms you earned that day. And so you'll have to do, and make sure you follow through once or twice. If you always cave in, then we'll just push the boundaries. And I think your kids are pushing the boundaries a little bit. Kudos to them, but we need to, with the dog, we just keep getting in a dangerous situation in the wrong circumstance, and we don't want to have that be the case. Now, if he is still lunging at the kids that are moving around, we can set up a follow-up session and we can do some counter conditioning and teach him just watching the kids run by equates me getting treats. It's not something for me to be alarmed at. But it'll be up to you guys. I'd like you guys to focus on this stuff for about a month. Now, if you do want to set up a follow-up session, let me know. I'm usually booked about a month in advance. And being a little bit further away from the greater LA area, I need a little bit of advance notice. All right, Angus, did I forget anything else, buddy? You're probably forgetting a lot. Give me all the treats, and then we'll talk about it. This is Angus, and this is Angus's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.